I am Donabel Perez, featured the research regarding to Argentina and Bolivia's foreign and economic policies. The discussion can be about my formulated Bloom's taxonomy question from my research. First, remembering. For For Argentina foreign policies, the current president, Mr. Alberto Fernandez's strategy differs greatly from the president before him, President Acre. The present administration is more protectionist and industrialist, less interested in negotiating free trade agreements, but they changed this approach and now they engage in different agreements. For the economic policies, they have fiscal policies. These are the policies relating to government revenue or taxes. Next one is monetary and macro financial policy. And the last one is exchange rate and balance of payments. For the Bolivia foreign policy, the newly elected president, Jeanine Anes, who took over the power of long-term president Evo Morales, has moved abruptly away from Morales' policies, expel the officials and pushing closer to Brazil and US. For the economic policy, they also have fiscal policy, monetary macro-financial policy, but they don't have exchange rate and balance payment policy. Next are understanding. For the understanding, first, for both country, Argentina and Bolivia, due to its approach regarding trade agreements, therefore Argentina and Bolivia foreign and economic policy are not efficient and unstable to make them globally competitive. However, when they change this approach, this positively impact their foreign relation and economic positions. For applying for both countries, Argentina and Bolivia, in their foreign policy, it includes all the policies that will develop to pursue its national interests as it interacts with countries, and this is currently present in Philippines administration. For economic policy, it is integral to have a strategic economic development plan. For analyzing, um, for both countries again, Argentina and Bolivia, their foreign and economic policy are not efficient. This is evident in 2018 when they faced numerous economic challenges. For evaluating, in both country, first sa Argentina, Jeanine Anes wants to conduct a democratic election smoothly. She also ensuring macroeconomic stability until next generation. Then for Bolivia, the change of government leads to different approach to international relation, trade and financial. Lastly, for Argentina, foreign and economic policy reform, I created three reforms. First is the competition and regulation. They must reduce barriers to trade and regulatory burdens. Next, for tax system aspect, they must improve the efficiency of the tax system. Lastly, education and skills. They have to enhance outcomes and equity in education. For Bolivia, to manage Bolivia effectively, it is critical to understand the specific challenges exist in each sectors. Next will be Patricia Pilapi.
I am Patricia Pilapil, and I will be a future research regarding to the Brazil and Chile's foreign and economic policies. In Brazil, when it comes to remembering what are the foreign and economic policies in that Brazil and Chile has. Brazilian foreign policy is widely acknowledged for its stability, continuity, and high degree of predictability, which can be seen across the many periods in which it has been classified. From its independence in 1822 through the formation of the Republic in 1889, the country's foreign participation was driven by consistent behavioral pattern in liberal conservative patterns. While in Chile's foreign policy will continue its strong heritage of adhering to international law, fostering democracy, and retaining active participation in peace and security concerns within international institutions. Under under President Michelle Bachelet's newly elected government. And in the understanding, as I truly researched and examined the policies of both countries, Brazil and Chile, I discovered that their foreign policies are not comparable. However, when reviewing their economic strategies, they have executed the same goal, and it is all about obtaining the average rate of employment growth. And in the next years, the two countries hope to raise their employment rates by a percentage point. In analyzing, um, the Philippines can also adopt Brazil's foreign policy, which focuses on growing employment and ensuring equitable salaries for all employees. While in Brazil is changing employment protection legislation, the Philippines should do the same to assist reduce labor market fragmentation. When it comes to evaluating, although the government prioritized this element in the Philippines, there is only a limited amount of change that is displayed and publicized here in country that we live in. And there are also concerns with pay that are not fair for people who work very hard compared to those who perform basic jobs. And when it comes to creating, I've always believed that any country should be fair to all employees because workers or employees are the ones or the reasons why the company is improving. And they are the ones who serve the country in order for the company to continue to go around in circles. And next reporter na po.
Next country is Colombia. So under remembering, according to your research, how can you explain the state of country or Colombia when it comes to their foreign or economic policy? In Colombia, in foreign policy, it is seen that Colombia is becoming competent in achieving growth as well as ensuring equality and peace. The state have maintained its position as a global leader in fight of against the global problems of drugs, terrorism, institutional strengthening, and commitment to the defense and promotion of human, wherein strengthening the economic and commercial investment ties with Asia and the Pacific in order to further its democratic prosperity. In economic policies, Colombia has been added to the CVET group of emerging economies. Brazil, Russia, India, and China will strengthen and consolidate their economic or political and diplomatic ties. It is a top priority to join the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development right. Next country is Ecuador. Ecuador's economy is based on the exports of bananas, shrimp, and other primary agricultural products, as well as petroleum production. The Ecuadorian government borrowed heavily from abroad during the 1970s oil boom, subsidized consumers and producers, and expanded the state's role in economic production. President Sixto Duran government balance has worked to stabilize the economy, modernize the state, and expand the role of the free market since 1992. With the number one question for you, what is the most important thing under the contemporary foreign and economic policies of a country? First, in foreign policies, Colombia. Colombia's international relations will need to be more diverse, both in the multilateral environment and in the search for new partners and strategic alliances on a global scale. Next is Ecuador. Ecuador's government remains heavily reliant on revenue from oil exports and domestic fuel, but it is attempting to diversify its revenue sources by increasing value added and income taxes. Next is economic policies. In Colombia, to enhance integration with Latin America and the Caribbean in order to provide more trade, investment, and technological exchange opportunities. In Ecuador, it's worker rights. Next is applying. In your research, what are the things that you can adapt in both countries to apply for the development of economic policies of the Philippines? In Colombia, to make the Colombia's relations with Asia Pacific countries more dynamic through a reinforced diplomatic presence, opening new markets, and attracting investment. In Ecuador, which is the debt management policy. Next one is analyzing. Based on your research, what are the different parts of economic policies in Colombia and Ecuador? In Colombia, first is to enhance integration with Latin America and Caribbean in order to provide more trade, investment, and technological exchange opportunities. Second, to make Colombia's relations with Asia Pacific countries more dynamic through a reinforced diplomatic presence, opening new markets, and attracting investment. Third is to identify political, economic, and investment opportunities for Colombia in groups such as Tibet, Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa, and by making part of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. While in Ecuador, the first one is exchange rate policy, second is structural policy, next is debt management policy, significant barriers to U.S. exports, export subsidies policies, protection of U.S. intellectual property, and last one is worker rights. Under evaluating, based on your research, why is it important for a country to have a foreign and economic policy? Foreign policy is important because it is designed to protect a country's essential values and interests as well as its national security, ideological aspirations, and economic development. It is characterized as a combination of goals and methods. The goal is a state's national interest, and the means are the nation's might and capabilities. In economic policies, it is important because it includes rapid economic growth, full employment, human development, and dignified labor price and exchange rate stability, fair competition, and the avoidance of cyclical swings. And the last one is, what can you advise to make the foreign, in creating, under the creating, what can you advise to make the foreign and economic policy of both countries to be more effective? For my own perspective, in order for the both countries or even the other countries for them to make their foreign and economic policy is for them to focus on the development of worker rights and giving them the benefits and salary that they deserve because these workers have a huge impact on foreign, especially economic policy. By increasing the economy's gross domestic output or GDP, when someone is employed, they are compensated by their employer. As a result, they have money to spend on food, clothing, entertainment, and a variety of other things in society. And next one is it gives an attention to the equality in peace. In this strategy, this helps the country more open to different cultures and nationalities. By that, the country will be more competitive due to the lesser risk of foreign nationals becoming to different places. That's all. And next reporter.
So I will report the answers of my Bloom's taxonomy for Guyana, for the country of Guyana and Paraguay. So for the remembering, based on the research you conducted, what are the foreign and economic policy of both countries wants to deliver? So foreign policy of Guyana and Paraguay has similarities with each other since they both want to build relations with countries that is high influential, such as in United States and British countries. Since these countries are both in low state because of their independency. However, even though both of them are in the progress of building relations and alliance in other countries, they also have a different goal to implement their foreign policy. For Guyana, they conduct their foreign policy to protect their territory of against the claims of countries Venezuela and Suriname. Suriname and Venezuela are blaming Guyana that they lack the capacity to boost their sovereignty to protect their territorial waters. And because of this given impression, They are treating the country of Guyana however they please. While for Paraguay, they build the policy to not intervene in the affairs to other countries and to avoid relations with other with countries under Marxist government. In terms of economic policy, Guyana and Paraguay's objective is not far apart from each other as they are both seeking for assistance from affluent countries. Guyana, along with the territorial dispute between Venezuela and Suriname, they faced tremendous debt as their former president Hoyte inherited an external debt burden and large debt payment arrears that values $885 million. With that, they seek international assistance for humanitarians since they are in need in additional loans so that the productive side of their economy could be rebuilt. On the other side, after the World War II occurred, because of their agricultural products such as soybeans and cottons, Paraguay's economic growth is one of the fastest pace of all the Latin American countries during the year 70s. However, when cotton and soybeans price lowered, Paraguay had become no personal income tax and government revenues as a percentage of GDP were among the lowest in the world. Next is the understanding. The foreign policy. In terms of foreign economy policy, what is your understanding towards the two countries' foreign and economic? Give some opinions to support your claim. So the foreign policy of both countries has a relation to each other, as they are seeking to affluent countries to assist them to rise for the things that other countries done to them. For the foreign policy of Guyana, my understanding is that they implement foreign policy to protect their territory as they discovered that their country is rich from oil resources that can be used in transportation. And that only gives reason why their neighbor countries wants to conquer their land, specifically Venezuela and Suriname. Aside from that, Guyana is the only Caribbean country that speaks English language that become their edge to communicate with other countries, especially in United States. And for their economic policy, since Guyana is a poor country before, they implement economic policy that were divided into four parts so that they sustain the economic growth of their country for their future GDP. Likewise, my understanding to Paraguay, though they have similarities with Guyana, Paraguay had been apart from politics, diplomacy, and academics because of the legacy of their former president. That's why Paraguay had been referred to as not political competitive country and is looked down by other countries, especially the countries under Mercosur. So, their foreign policy aims to build respect and to prove that they are belong as one of the countries in Latin America. Their economic policy had been a good starting as they have their own product, such as soybeans and cottons. But since this product provide mass production, its price can be decreased year by year as its number of production increase. And so, just like Guyana, they divided their economic policy into three parts to monitor the flow of their GDP in the past years. Next one is the apply. In some ways, given that you are a citizen of one of the given countries, what would be your thoughts to apply to help the country to improve their foreign relations and economy increase? If I were one of the citizens of Guyana, one thing that I may help to them is to be a speaker to give advocacy to our people that we are one suffer from discrimination from other countries, that we have been used, especially the United States and British countries, to widen their invasion. I would be also become a mobilizer of the country that spreads awareness on how other countries try to conquer our land, and at the same time educate people to embrace their own culture, language, and ethnicity. Aside from that, giving them a hint from history in what is the state of our country before, how we cope up, and how we are gradually get up can be a big impact and influence for other citizens to move and make it as a way to expand and dominate the change of our country. In the economy, and as a citizen, we have a large impact on the increase of economy in our country. In just paying taxes, buying products, paying debts, sell properties, etc. To help to increase the economy of our country, it is better for our country to implement globalization, like trading, export and import to other countries. Though it is a contrary for our countries want to be independent, it is a big opportunity for us to build relations and image, and at the same time, it would be a large economic growth. Next one for the analyze, Guyana and on the basis of the policy of the two countries, what would be the things that the two may differ from each other? Guyana and Paraguay's differences from each other is Guyana has five predominant themes for their foreign policy, and that is the political alignment, support for leftist cause worldwide, promotion of economic unity in the English-speaking Caribbean, opposition to apartheid, and protection for territorial integrity in the border disputes with Venezuela and Suriname. And for the Paraguay, they only has two objectives in their foreign policy, and that is non-intervention in the affairs of other countries and no relations with countries under Marxist government. However, the comparison of the foreign policy of Guyana and Paraguay, when they are both under sufferings were conquered by other countries, seeks assistance from rich countries to build alliance and to develop the country's democratic changes. Since they are incompetent to increase their economy for the reason that they are both an independent country that avoids to align with other countries, including that they are both helped by European unions. And next is the evaluate. For me, my country has a big difference from what does the Guyana and Paraguay's policy has. The Philippines' foreign policy are anchored on three pillars: the preservation and enhancement of national security, protection of the rights and promotion of the welfare of overseas Filipinos, and promotion and attainment of economic security. These pillars are more focused on the welfare of OFWs, overseas Filipino workers, and the alliance of our country to dominant countries. However, even though they are not focused on the similar objectives in foreign policy, Philippines, Guyana, and Paraguay has a comparisons in terms of international countries assistance. They are also in need for help and accepted the aid that those countries given to them. And lastly, for the create. Guyana and Paraguay is both countries in South America that is lack in popularity because of their incompetitiveness. They are both low in ranking of countries' popularity according to the Legatum Prosperity Index, Guyana being in the 94th and Paraguay in 79. Many years had passed since the colonization in both countries have done. Their foreign and economic policy were written years ago and is not already 100% legitimate. For the state of both countries today, since they have no difference at all, it is better to research and study again their foreign relations and their finance to renew a foreign and economic policy for more effective outcome. They must also consider small things that can support the growth of their economy, like the small businesses. That's all. Next report.
Hi, I'm audible. Audible naman, no? So,
Yes.
for me, the country that I will discuss is Peru and Suriname. So first, next slide, please. So first is next. So remembering. So the question is, how would you describe the Peru's today's generation? In today's time, we all know that the pandemic has a big impact in every country all over the world. Aside from the Peru is one of the progressive country, they experience the impact of the pandemic. Today's the status of Peru is moderate to travel and is in good condition. And step by step, they rise from the circumstances that they are facing. In Suriname started to invest in building some infrastructure and enhance the country attractiveness for foreign direct investment, or also called FDI, into its mining sector. It will result in improving and enhancing their country so that they can go with the other country, and investing is one that will help to the country's economy. Next slide. Next is understanding. How would you compare the Peru in other country? Since Peru since Peru continues in the empowerment of building and relationship to the other country and continent, they export all trade like oil from them and other raw material that would bring as a medium and good communication or trading. In this way, we can see that they continue to grow and prosper their economy and the status of their country as one of the advanced country in Latin America. In Suriname, since it is one of the smallest countries in South America, they do not have a big GDP income and are not as progressive as the other country. But as time passed by and doing the policy that they implemented, they grow little by little. Next slide, please. Next is applying. What would result if they are not use their policy as basis to rise their economy? In Peru, as we all know, has its own model and that they called I mean they has its own model and that they are implemented and basis in terms of foreign and economy. In this kind of policy isn't made possible in every country, isn't made possible to their country will not be as progressive as their neighbor country in Latin America. Since the proposed policy and Peruvian model is one of the effective ways on what's Peru's status from the past years up to this time. In Suriname, is if they are not doing some action and if they will stay on what they have right now, they are no longer improving as what the other country likes. Doing such objectives and policies that they are using today will help to grow and be one of the competitive and progressive country. Next slide. Next one is analyzing. What is the relationship of Peru to the other country or continent? One of the foreign policies of Peru is empowering its relationship with other countries and continents. As they state, as they state statement like this, the relationship of Peru was all good since some of the other countries and continent get some raw materials that they are trading. Having a good and smooth communication to the other country through trading, I guess that their relationship is good and have a prominent relationship. In Suriname is what would be the relationship of Suriname and USA. Suriname and the United States have a positive relationship through the Caribbean Basis Security Initiative. The two countries collaborate to improve regional security and prosperity, strengthen military to military cooperation, and promote a more economically prosperous Suriname with a development civil society infrastructure through the cultural and educational programs and exchange. Next one is for creating. How could you test their policy that they implemented? In Peru, their strategy in policy isn't applicable to every country all over the world. But this kind of strategy that they are implemented would be a big help as the basis on how they come up with this. Regarding testing, this will undergo a specific study and will have a trial for how many months or weeks before publishing and scrutinizing. If this will be effective, they might be implemented and put it as a foreign economy policy. In Suriname, they presented the foreign and economic policy. It will come up in observation on how this policy resulted. If this might have been an impact and a positive result, they must continue with it. Next slide, please. Oh, how could you test the policy that you wanted to implement it? Sorry. So in selecting the policy, beforehand declare is at a law or a policy. They must know the specific sector nor department in analyzing what is the main issue or problem that they might be focused. Upon analyzing it and study about a certain issue would be a downfall to making laws and policies that will help to diminish the issue and problem that is affected their country. In Suriname, lastly, just like in Peru, they must be tackled and observe each sector and department so that they can see the issue and problem that they want to address. Once that they address this, they can conduct a study and analyze the solution before the production of a certain law. That's it. Thank you.
My report is all about the country of Venezuela and Uruguay. Next slide po. Wait lang po. Remembering, the Uruguay and United States have a strong relation and strong commitment to each other. They are both exchange different ideas. The United States and Uruguay share a commitment to democracy, human rights, rule of law, sound economic policies, strong labor rights, and investment in people. Venezuela is one of the worst countries that was placed under the 32-second crisis and corruption in Venezuela and poor service economic management. Next po. Next one is understanding. Corruption, poor service economic management, and crisis pushed Venezuela in rank 177. economic freedom index, and also this was triggered by the pandemic. It damaged more the Venezuela economic growth. Economic freedom has been suffocated in Venezuela under the Chavez and Maduro regimes. If a transitional government could take power and begin to long return to market democracy. Next po. Applying, if Uruguay become independent in that time, they not gain more relation to the strong country and not gain support to the other country. Uruguay was built a strong relationship between different countries. That's why because they want to gain more power during the World War. However, Uruguay can be independent but they choose to have relation to build more power. It become worse and year by year, and the economic growth and economic freedom in Venezuela was become totally damaged and gained serious negative impact by the inflation of unemployment people and price hike in any products and also increased corruption. Next po, analyzing. Uruguay has a mixed economic system in which there is a variety of private freedom combined with centralized economic planning and government regulation. And the economic policy of Germany has a mixed economic system which includes a variety of private freedom combined with centralized economic planning and government regulation. The Chavez administration used oil production to increase autonomy from United States and European governments, and use of oil funds to promote economic and political integration with other Latin American nations. Next one is evaluating. Because of crisis in Venezuela, hyperinflation, violence, corruption, and food and medicine shortage, and inflation of unemployment people, gross economic mismanagement and high dependence on oil have also contributed to the worsening crisis. Next po. And lastly is creating. By creating and reopening more business sectors, this will help the economic growth in Venezuela to grow faster. More business opportunities will be help people to seek jobs. And also, Venezuela government needs to remove the political corruption, proper supplies of everything, and balanced handling will help the country to bounce back and gain more economic. By exchanging different culture, economic, and political ties, this will help to accept Uruguay.